All right, as always, we start Sisterhood by looking at a news story. We discuss something that we think is relevant, whether it be a current story or something that's just been in the news previously. And this week is no different. We're going back a little bit on the whole thing of branding and the phenomenon of being a personal brand. And we're answering the question today, if you were a brand, what brand would you be? So I'm going to forward that over to you, Sam.
I'm not one for self-branding.
Okay.
For me, where I work is the brand. So if ever I'm going into a room, if ever I'm going to a meeting, or if ever I'm going to an event, that brand of Hackney Empire Theatre goes before me, if you see what I mean. So I have to actually reflect what they're branded as. And, you know, within their field, it is quite an established brand. Those that know it will know sort of what the Empire stands for. So in terms of self-branding, it's not something I would do, and especially being in sales and fundraising and business development, you'll take on the brand of whoever you're actually working for. So self-branding, I don't know.
No,
I'm not into it, really.
No,
I'm sure you fall into it indirectly because people have a perception of you as the fundraiser for Hackney Empire Theatre.
They have a perception of Hackney Empire Theatre, but I don't think they have a perception of me.
I think that's interesting.
I'm sure they know who you are individually.
But is that important, though? That I mean, I don't know, it sounds all a bit too American for me. I don't know. Yeah, it's like taking this off a bit too seriously.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, having to be a brand, having to be a certain type of person who talks a certain type of way, who wears a certain type of outfit. I don't know, I just think it's a bit too much.
Really?
It's a bit
now,
too
you know,
much,
I
I
completely
think.
disagree with you, right?
Oh, no. Well, you would be biased because you work in marketing, don't you?
Absolutely.
Branding.
I mean, absolutely. Branding's what we do at S&G, and I think that every single person who's in business is a brand. Whether or not you choose to recognise it, whether or not you choose to recognise it and then act on it, is a completely different thing. So let's take you, for example. You're absolutely right. You go out, in my opinion, you go out and you represent an organisation that's got years of brand history behind them. But clients buy into you as an individual. And hold on, let me finish. And even when you walked into the interview, you have to package yourself in a particular way. Now, of course, you're not going to sit there and say, what's my brand guidelines? And you're not going to do that because you're not an organisation. But you are going to take a minute to think about, how do I want to be perceived? What are the core messages, the subliminal messages, as well as the verbal messages that I want people to pick up on? And so that's why I say all of us who are in business are brands in one way or another. And yes, it is a bit Americanised, but I think it's the reality, personally.
What do you mean? Do you mean ally yourself to a brand?
No, I mean,
I'll be a Volkswagen Audi. Or
well, if I was
I'll be a Porsche.
well, you know, if I was doing a marketing session and we were looking at branding, then I would throw those sorts of questions. And we do. We kind of, I mean, Sue, you and I have done, haven't we, over dinner and some wine. And I've kind of said to Sue, you know,
Pinot Grigio.
No, the thing is, I've named my fashion label after myself, so I have to live the brand.
That's like discussing Hackney Empire's brand. That's not saying.
But a product's not a brand. Just to clear the myth for anybody that's in marketing or looking at marketing, a brand is the emotional connection with your audience. A product is the thing that people buy into, whether it be a service or the tangible product. So if you take Nike, for example, Nike is the brand, and then the product might be, you know, the Nike blue and green trainer, or it might be the tracksuit, or it might be, those are products, but the brand is the emotional connection.
But that's what I'm saying. So Hackney Empire is the brand, the performances are the product. So Sue Augusta is an organisation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how would you brand yourself then?
How would you brand
Yeah, but
yourself?
my product is my handbags, my belts, etc.
Right.
My brand is Sue Augusta, who's fun, quirky, colourful, etc.
But when you say you have to live that brand and be that brand, like, what does that encompass? What do you have to do?
There's no rules. It should just come naturally.
But
I didn't.
Go on.
I didn't brand, myself. I think that's what I'm naturally. So that's why that should follow through consistently. I'm not a grey person.
And I think that, as individuals in this country, we're so anti-selling ourselves that we kind of play it down.
No, that's not true.
It's so arrogant. I mean, you really buy into this whole American idea of, hi, my name's Abby McAndula, I work for this person, I earn this much money.
I buy into marketing.
Yeah.
Whether it's from China, America, or, Scandinavia.
I don't believe that's true at all.
Don't you not?
No, and certainly if you're a fundraiser, you don't actually have the opportunity to not blow trumpets and say how great everything is.
But I'll tell you why I disagree with you, because every time we've mentioned a personal brand versus a business brand, you've talked about the business brand. And I'm saying, yes, there are business brands, Hackney Empire Theatre, and there are personal brands. And the personal brand is what people buy into the minute you walk into the interview and they choose to take you on board or not take you on board.
But surely the personal brand is the profession you're in. So the press officer at my place acts completely different to the farm, you know, would have a completely different look, wear completely, you know.
But I think what KUBI's saying is that we are individually, independently from our businesses and organisations that we work for, brands. And so when it's somebody, like your CV would be part of your brand, for example, so the more you put in it, the more you put onto it, the more you feed into it. I mean, you know, to be honest, I think with these things, you can't take them too seriously. I mean, I think there comes a time, like, you know, it's a bit like applying for a job or going for a particular contract, where you have to be a certain person. You've got to be the person that the recipient wants you to be, you know, the person that's paying you. But then, you know, once the deal's done, that hat's got to come off, you know, and I think the problem is people just take themselves sometimes too seriously.
All right, okay, I'm going to move on swiftly from there and ask your opinion. Do you agree with Sophie and Abby in that, you know, at the end of the day, KUBI's taking herself too seriously? I'm joking. Or do you think that actually there is a difference between personal branding and organisational brands? Go onto our website. We do have a monthly blog. We do like to hear what you have to say, sisterhoodtv.com.